Hi, everybody. I'm Phil Rader, and first of all, I apologize. I don't do video work directly, and so I apologize in advance for the quality of this. Hopefully, it doesn't look like a hostage video or anything, but anyway, just to answer the questions in this assignment, this is not my first time making prints. I do so pretty regularly. I don't do so myself, though, but I'll do a lot of prints for consideration for exhibits or contests, or sometimes just for the fun of it to share with friends or families that might be in them. I use White House Custom Color, which is out of Minnesota, for a lot of my printmaking. They're affordable. They're also very fast. If you order, I think, like $12 or more, you'll have it at your doorstep within 2 days. So if I do something nice, like if I have a work that's going to be displayed in a show or something, I might use a place in St. Paul, Minnesota called Big Al's. Big Al's is actually owned by Alex Soth, the photographer, who I think is actually in our textbook. And then I also use Whitewall, which does great work, especially with larger prints. So as far as my own printing is concerned, I usually just do little test prints and things like that, such as this assignment. So let me turn the camera and just show the prints that I did for the assignment this week. Actually did all of these on just a relatively basic HP printer, and I'll just kind of walk through real quick kind of the groupings that I put together here with them. I know that their notes for the first assignment reference black and white, and I had a couple reasons for doing some black and white as part of this week's work. First of all, these first few photos are ones that I had taken a little earlier this summer with a 4x5 camera, and quite frankly forgot to develop them and just came across them last weekend. So these are just some photos that were taken at my wife's family farm. This is the 162nd crop that they've taken at the farm, which I think is farmers speak for they've been farming, the same family's been farming this land for 162 years. I wanted to include this because we looked at Sally Mann's work in this assignment, and she actually talks a lot about her imperfection in her work from the process that she uses. And if you look at these, I actually used a processor that had just expired, so if you look close you can see some kind of weird coloration there at the top of these images. Of these, my favorite's this top one, and actually is one I might have printed larger to see. The next batch is also black and white. This was taken from a gathering of some friends and family this past week. I've always liked the work of Larry Fink and Gary Winogrand and some of the kind of social photos that they did back in the 60s and 70s. And I actually did all of these with this camera here, which is just a little Leica digital that I love. And so these are just kind of quick, almost street photography style, I guess, photos at this party. My favorite is actually this top one. This is actually a member of Congress from here in Iowa, who's a good friend with our family, and I just kind of I like her hand gestures and kind of peeking through the crowd at her. So the rest of the photos are all in color. Everything's processed using Photoshop, which is something I'm just getting used to. This first batch of photos were actually taken at the Labor Day parade earlier this week, and kind of grouped them in three different settings. One were just some politics. This is Iowa. The presidential caucuses are getting close. There's a lot of campaigning here, and so all the campaigns had a contingent marching in the parade, and so just these are a few that I like. Kind of a serious young woman for Kamala Harris, happy group of people for Cory Booker, and young woman or girl carrying some signs for Bernie Sanders. The other photos are just typical parade photos, some people sitting along the curb watching, a worker with their sign. This guy is kind of a superhero of candy throwers. That pole that he's on is actually in the back of a float. And then this young woman in a Latina dance group that was in the parade. What I like most about the parade, and I'll come back to when we talk about favorites, is I got hooked on the kids chasing candy in the parade, and so that actually could have been a fun series of photos from that particular event. As I mentioned, this was all in Iowa, and we see presidential candidates all the time, and I actually tagged along with one this week, Senator Michael Bennet from Colorado. He is a Democratic U.S. Senator, used to be superintendent of Denver Public Schools, and is one of many in the presidential contest this year. He visited one of our preschools on the first day of preschool at our school district here in Des Moines, and so I followed him and just took some basic kind of photojournalist style photos. And also it was kind of interesting in that while a lot of times when I take photos for my work, I have the run of the place, and with the presidential candidates, you can kind of see in one of these photos a couple of cameras in the backdrop. You're sort of jostling with 4, 5, 6 other photographers taking the scene. I'm going to come back to one of these photos when we talk about favorites, but these are just a couple of our preschoolers who just some nice candid portraits of 2 kids on their very first day of school ever. And then the final 5 photos of the 30 is from a swim meet. We have we got a brand new 300 millimeter camera for our work, and I wanted to test it out in an indoor setting. Swimming is hard to photograph because frankly everybody looks the same. I mean, they're all in their suits, they're on their goggles, they're all in their skull caps. And so I just decided to kind of focus, pull some photos out of body parts sticking out of the water. And again, I think this could have made kind of a fun, bigger series or something to just play around with in the future. I like, probably this is my favorite of that grouping. It just kind of, to me anyway, shows kind of a strong young woman competing there in the pool. So anyway, these are the 30 photos I took. This is all from stuff I shot this past week, except for those first 3 that I processed this past week. And so again, just some old film, some black and white from a party, a large parade, presidential candidate, and then playing around with the swim meet and trying to get something interesting out of that. I thought the challenges in this really, when it came to the prints, were no different than trying to pick something I'd share online, just looking for images that, for one reason or another, I felt were eye-catching, whether it's what the people were doing, what the colors were, what the patterns were. I'm not satisfied with the quality of the print of these, but again, I did these just on an on an HP kind of middle-of-the-road desktop printer. So if you look closely at some of these, you can even see some little bit of a dirty drum on my printer that's leaving a bit of a line, and I think in this photo especially. So, and I guess for the final question, just looking at favorites and then how those compare to how they show up on the screen. I've got 3 that I'm going to pick here just to take a quick look at. One is this woman that was in the Latina dance group that was in the Labor Day parade. Again, the colors, I think we forget that photos we see on a screen are backlit, and of course what we see on a print is front lit. So the screen version clearly pops a lot more, whether that be the same or different. If I had this printed by a professional printer, is something probably to work on with them, but I think you can kind of see the print version, at least what I've got here, is a little bit more muted. I do really like this photo, just the kind of the symmetry of it with her in the middle, and then that the bright colors of the skirt fill out the entire frame. Another favorite I mentioned from the preschool visit. This little girl, and I might just like this photo because I chatted with this girl while I was shooting several frames of her. Her first day of school ever. She was extremely excited, and is almost. I mean, this is almost like probably a stock a stock photograph that we might use in our work, just to show, happy little kids having fun at school. But despite shooting a lot of frames at the school of a presidential candidate, it was this photo of a little girl on her first day of school ever, that I thought was my favorite photo from that. One of my three favorite from the week, and maybe it's just because I had a chance to chat with her. And then lastly, the third photo that was a favorite was this one from the Labor Day parade. I mentioned, the one thing in the parade that caught my eye the most was kids chasing candy being thrown from floats. And there's something about this one that the little girl there on the right with just kind of this, sea of red and green candy and Tootsie Rolls and things like that laying out before her almost, kind of shows a little bit of the overwhelmingness if you're a kid trying to collect candy from a parade. This is a photo. You can see the print came up a little darker than on screen, and actually it's a photo that I'd probably go back and work a little bit more, try to lighten up the girl over on the right just a little bit, to show her a little bit better. But kind of the concept or scheme behind this photo, I enjoyed. So anyway, those are my prints from this first printing assignment. Thanks if you listened this far, and looking forward to seeing everybody's work. It was a great first couple of weeks, and looking on to moving to number 3. Thanks.